Today, happy Father's Day to all the fathers in the room, by the way. And it is one of those great ironies of Father's Day that on Father's Day, we're going to do something that every dad just hates, okay? It's just how it works. We get it. We're used to it by now. We're going to be reading from Deuteronomy 6:7. So it just fell that way, and you know what? None of us like it, but it just happened that way, so take it to God. The kids and I went to Pilot Mountain the other day, and started walking. By the way, I love the view from Pilot Mountain. It is just wonderful up there, and it's a super cool thing that we've got where there's a mountain you can hike on, and the parking lot's on the top of the mountain. Can you believe it? It's like the Tower of Babel. You know what I mean? There's nothing we can't do, and it's great. And I'm just waiting for Everest to get his parking lot, and then I'm there, and it's going to be fun. And what's cool about Pilot Mountain is I was looking around, and I saw that they have something just like we have in our backyard. A swing set. No, I'm just joking. They have blackberries. You see this picture here? Can you see it? There's blackberries. And they're just growing wild, exactly how they are in my backyard. There's some that are still red, not quite ready. There's some a deep, dark purple, ready to be enjoyed, ready to be picked. And I saw them and I said, kids, come back here. I want you to see this. I want you to see what the Pilot Mountain has for us to see. And then notice where these blackberries are. Next slide, please. Off the side of the mountain. No longer in the it's safe to be here zone of Pilot Mountain. And I said, do you see that, kids? That's exactly what temptation is. That's how sin works. It promises you something sweet, and it leads you off a cliff. It says, hey, I've got something wonderful for you, and then you go flying down a mountain. And I go, kids, have you ever had that? Have you ever been like, you know what I need to do right now? What would really help me out is if I just screamed at my brother or sister, what I need is just one big yell at their face. And you go, that would be so sweet. And then you do it. Does it feel sweet afterwards? They go, no. I go, that's right. Because it promised you something sweet, but it led you off a cliff. And don't you ever forget it. And my son Sam goes, Dad, are you going to put that in a sermon? And I go, no, son, this was just for you. And it was going to be until he said that funny line. So I thought, well, now I got to share it with my friends. But yeah, not every lesson I give my kids is meant for a sermon. I don't just talk to them for reasons to have some story to add into my sermons. Some lessons are just for my kids. They're there because you're my kids and I'm your dad, and it's my job to help you understand this world. And I have to teach you what life is like. And lessons from dad is important. It's important for kids to grow up with these lessons from their parents, these things they're hearing said to them from their parents and from their dads, speaking into their life, saying, this is how life works. You need to understand how life works in this world. And here's the trouble. Are you ready? Sometimes lessons from dad feel like they're falling on deaf ears. I got some bad news for you. The reason it feels like they're falling on deaf ears is because they are. They really are falling on deaf ears when you talk to your kids. Very rarely are they going to be like, whoa, time out, stop, slow down, big guy. I want to write this down. It's going to go in my biography. Come on, stop. I want to get every last word. They're not going to do that. Almost never will you hear your son say, Dad, you should be a preacher. That's actually pretty good. You're almost never going to hear that. But here's the good news. Are you ready? None of that matters. It doesn't matter if it's falling on deaf ears now. It doesn't matter that when you share with your kids, you talk to your kids, you say, hey, I want to just give you some encouragement, or I want to help give you some correction, or I want to do anything at all, and the only response you get is, okay, can I go back now? And you're like, okay, fine, yes, you can go back to what you're doing. It doesn't matter. Because the ground does not get up and rejoice when the farmer scatters seeds across its back, does it? It doesn't stop the farmer in his track and go, hey, by the way, thank you for scattering seed today. Thank you for doing that. No, it just sits there under a blanket of seed that the farmer has laid down. And it has eventually, as it sits there in the presence of this seed that the farmer has laid down, eventually it takes root. Eventually it springs up into life, and vegetation occurs, and the field reaps the benefits from the seed the farmer has laid. Yet it never really said thank you. And by the way, that's what a lot of lessons in relationship and instruction from a mom or a dad to the kids is. It is just a blanket of seed waiting to find root. But right now, our kids are somewhere in between soil at the end of winter and the beginning of spring. And you know I'm right about this, don't you? Because you and I, we're living this reality right now. How many of us have caught ourselves saying something like this? You know, my dad always said. Right? And you're going, did I just quote my dad to somebody? I cannot believe I'm letting this guy win this argument. I've held so strong since third grade. You know what I mean? I was holding strong, telling him how dumb he was, and now I'm quoting him to other people. And you realize, oh wow, it was worth it. About a year ago, there's a meme that went all over the internet, and it was all over the place for a while, and it went like this. The older I get, the more I realize my dad was right about basically everything. I just didn't like his tone of voice. And as we talk to our kids, there's a strong chance what they're going to come back with is, what do you know? You don't know what it's like being in high school. You don't know what it's like getting a job for the first time. You don't know what it's like doing math. And you go, do you really think we just fast forwarded? And the answer is yes. Because we were the kids once as well. We just thought our parents were born old and crotchety. Remember? We just thought they just showed up one day like this. But yet, the relationship we had with them benefited us. And unfortunately, life is not a sitcom. Unfortunately, our life is not made up of easy to understand 30-minute segments where we can all kind of make sense of the stories of our lives in a very short amount of time and gather together at the end of every night and go, man, I now see what you were saying. Oh, now I know the lesson. Now I understand the message of the life I just lived for the last 30 seconds. No, it's a long thing. Life is long, you know? Like I'm getting to the age where my childhood, when I think back to it, it's not black and white, but it is kind of sepia tone. Like it's brown, right? It's starting to lose its color. I'm starting to go, was I in the Wild West when I grew up? I don't know. And it's a long life. And as we go through it, it is our job as parents to hand these things down to our kids. It is our job to say, hey, let me help you understand this life. And in the book of Deuteronomy, if you open up chapter 6 of Deuteronomy, one of the classic sections in all of Scripture, this is probably my fourth time preaching about it here. It says that's how big this passage is for me and for us, is Moses says, here's what I want you to understand. Now, Deuteronomy is the fifth book of the Bible. Moses had broke Israel out of slavery in Egypt. They took them through the Red Sea, remember that, and then they spent 40 years in the wilderness. And now they're at the end of those 40 years, and they're about to cross into this land that we know as Israel, but they call it the Promised Land. Okay, the land flowing with milk and honey. It's going to be a great land, right? Okay, and so he's about to die, and Deuteronomy is a collection of the last 5 lectures Moses gives. Okay, and a lot of it's him retelling things they already know, and a lot of it's him recounting the history, remind them of how good God's been, and some of it is new stuff. And so here's what he says. He says this: these are the commands, the decrees, and the laws of the Lord that God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you're crossing over the Jordan to possess, so that your children and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, keeping His decrees and the commands that I give you, so that you may enjoy long life. Okay? One of the sayings, why does God give us rules? Why does God teach us? Why does He instruct us on how to live? So that we may enjoy the benefits of His instruction. The life not being wrecked with every ounce of regret that comes along the way. That we may avoid these things as we go, right? One of the things we like to say around Foothills is that God's not a tyrant, He's a friend. That when God speaks into our lives, He's doing it as a person who cares for our benefits and not wants to hurt us. And so it says this, verse 3, hear Israel and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord your God has promised your ancestors. Okay? So here it is. 6:7, chapter 6, verse 7, right here. You ready? Impress them on your children and talk about them when you are at home, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates. Verses 7, 8, and 9 are the verses that just stick with me all the time. They're the verses that just remind me that my duty as dad is always going on. That we are just constantly in this position where we need to be speaking wisdom into the lives of our kids as they're getting up and laying down. And it's not always about blackberries and temptation and stuff like that. Sometimes it's about how to save money and not squander it. Sometimes it's about how to get up early and get going so you have more time later in the day to have some fun. Sometimes it's about all sorts of things. But as we do it, and then we have these moments where I find myself talking to my kids, and I always think about this verse. And I always sit there and I go, I'm doing it. Like I'm actually doing it. We're walking along the way. And I'm going, look, kids, let's talk about God for a minute. Hey, look, kids, let's think about this for a minute. And as those moments show up in my life, which are not as often as they should be, unfortunately, but as they show up in my life, I feel like God has said, Garrett, you're hitting the target and the bullseye right now. It's as if someone has come up to me and said, Garrett, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to pass the wisdom of God down to your kids. And in these moments, I'm actually doing it. And the reason it feels like I'm succeeding at a mission in those moments is because we are on a mission from God. The reason it feels like I'm succeeding at a mission is because I am. In that moment, I'm succeeding in a mission from God, where God has said, hey, Garrett, you're not just living out your days. You're not just seeing how it goes. You're not just going to do this life and do it. No. You are living the one life God has given you. And we're raising the one family God's given me to raise. And we're going to go about our life finding ways to point our kids in the direction of God's goodness and God's wisdom and God's love. And I want you to just notice this real quick. Notice what Moses says about the nature of God's law. He goes, God gave me law to teach to the entire nation of Israel, right? I've been decreed by God to give this to you and your children and their children. And that's what he did. For 40 years, he taught them. And now he turns around and he says, and now parents, you teach the law to your kids. And so you have this sort of multi-directional people in your life helping your kids grow in their faith. And think about the church. It's my job description to preach about God. Think about that. It's my job description to get to open this book and say, what does it say to us today? It's my job. What we do at Foothills Christian Church is we preach Christ and we connect people. That's what we want. We want to preach Christ as wide and as far as we can, and we want to get people connected to each other and to this church and to the mission of God. And so at Foothills Christian Church, we have kids' church. We don't have babysitting, we have kids' church. And we have people teaching your kids about our God. And I teach, and I spend time with your kids, and I teach here, and I'm sharing with as many people as I can, but guess what? That's not where it stops. And then we also go into our own homes, and we impress it into the lives of our kids as well. It's the mission that we're on. It's how churches work together. Sometimes I think we go, well, I'll just take them to church and that'll be enough. And sometimes the church responds with, no, we don't do anything. You're supposed to be doing it. No, what we see in this picture is we're all working together. We're a community together. I love your kids, you love my kids. I serve your kids, you serve my kids. It's all part of the same team. And what is that thing? What is the mission that Moses says it's your job, my job to pass on to the next kids? What is it? He says this, verse 4 and 5 are the central pieces that we're supposed to be teaching our kids. He says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Have you heard that verse before? Did you recognize that one? There's a day Jesus was teaching, and a man came up to him and said, "Hey, Jesus, what's the greatest command? What's the most important one?" And you would think he was probably talking about one of the 10 Commandments, is it don't murder, no idols, no adultery? What's the biggest one? And he doesn't even go to any of the 10 Commandments. He comes to this place right here that Moses brings up right here, right now. He says the greatest command is that you would love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And then he says the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And then Jesus quits quoting the Bible, and he gives a piece of teaching that's his own words right here. And it's some of the best teaching in the history of the world. It's amazing how short he could talk and have such depth in his teaching. It's an amazing thing, Jesus Christ. He says this about these two laws. He says this, all the law and the prophets hang on these two commands. All of them. If you get these two under your belt, if you can figure these two things out, the rest will fall in line. All the 10 Commandments, all the rest of it. If you figure out how to love God and love people, the rest of these things are going to fall in line in your life. And what we see with these verses is this, is that in the Old Testament, the central part of the Hebrew faith was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then Jesus comes along and says one of the central aspects of our faith as Christians is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. It is as close to the center of what Christianity is about without Jesus actually being on a cross and coming out of an empty tomb. All right? That's how close in these teachings are. We have Jesus on the cross, dying for our sins, raising from the dead. That's one. We have the Great Commission, go tell the whole world and make disciples. That's two. And we have the greatest commands. These are massive verses in the Bible. And so what we see, what Moses is teaching us is the mission God has given us is to pass the faith down to our children. That's the mission. As we raise our kids, we pass the faith down. And one of the things we've been talking about a lot at Foothills is one of the aims that we have is how do we just continue to aim lower and lower and lower? Say, how do we keep pushing the faith down to the next generation? Because there's a ton of people out there that are not our generations that still need Jesus. And that's a massive aspect of what we're going to do. Will your kids grow up and leave your house having some of these central tenets under their belt? Your kids might grow up and go to another church or even be a part of a different denomination than you. Maybe not have all the same theological beliefs exactly the same as you. But the hope is that no matter what church they end up at, they'll go, well, I believe Jesus was a person and God, and he died on the cross and rose from the dead because my mom taught me that. Of course I believe the Bible is God's word because my dad taught me that. Of course I love Jesus. My dad taught me how to love Jesus. And if they can leave with the central aspects of Christianity, even if they grow up and say, well, maybe I don't agree with you exactly here, that's fine. Because our job is to pass the faith, the central aspects of the faith, to our kids. And as we all know, they'll one day have to do that for themselves, but right now we're trying to impress it on them. And people have often looked, they look at this all the time. What is it with kids that don't end up getting involved in drugs or pregnant before marriage or stay Christian after they go off to college, all these sorts of things. And they start looking for what are some of the common denominators that you find when you look at those kinds of people. And they always come up with something like similar things, right? Like, did you have family dinner as a kid? Did you ever hear your parents say, I'm sorry? That's one, right? Here's one that says, parents, do you know, this is one I heard this week, it blew my mind. Do you know the first and last name of the kids in your kids' friend group? Isn't that interesting? Can you call your kids' friends out with their government name? Andrew Michael, just stop that, will you? Can you do it? Are you involved in So when I was a youth pastor for 7 years. I had two boys who were best friends, and their names were Jackson and Michael. And it was a normal occurrence. If you were to walk into youth group on a Wednesday night, you would probably hear me at some point go, Michael Jackson, stop that! And it was just, they're best friends, and so I just yelled Michael Jackson all the time at youth group. And depending on the punctuation of that sentence, it's just two kids goofing around or something really bad's about to happen. So it was a weird thing at youth group. But here's the one that I found about 10 years ago. I wrote it down. It's always stuck with me. It's a lecture from a guy out of Notre Dame gave about 10 years ago. He said this. He studied people my age as we were leaving high school and college into adult life. That was his big thing. He did it for 12 years. He says, these are the 5 things he found for kids who stayed in their faith after they left the house. They had a personal faith commitment. Okay, yeah. Everyone knows that at some point your mom can't make you a Christian, right? Everyone knows that. At some point you got to do it for yourself. 2, they had religiously committed and practicing parents. 3, they had other supportive religious adults. You see that? It's like what Moses did, right? Their parents are impressing on them, but they also are involved in the church, and they know names of people at their church, the adults they can talk to, and they have other people that know them. 4 was sexual chastity, which is interesting. Not only do they believe like a Christian, but they live like a Christian. It's a behavior thing. Are you actually acting like a Christian? That affected whether or not they stayed a Christian after college. And this one's just crazy, but it makes perfect sense to me. Being made fun of for being religious. Now I want you to think about that. Think about the last 2. They behaved like Christians and they got made fun of for behaving like Christians. Think about how much skin in the game you get for those activities. And the opportunity as parents we have when our kids come home and say, Mom, I'm the only one at the sleepover who had to say, sorry, I'm not allowed to watch that movie. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, they said this because of whatever. And think about the opportunity you have to just sit down and say, hey, listen, I get it. I know it's hard. It's also not going to kill you. Like, we have a God that loves us, and we can live through this. And somehow, living in those sort of normal things where you have to experience these things about being Christian helps you stay a Christian longer. And do you notice something about these lists of things that people find? They're not monumental. They're not enormous. They're not the biggest things. All of them are like run-of-the-mill things. All of them are things that we could do easily. All of them are things that if we had the energy to do them, we would just do them all the time. If we kept our wits about us. If we didn't get lulled to sleep in our day-to-day lives. If we didn't get drawn into this sort of rhythm of the world that says I'm driven and I'm goal-oriented at work and I know how to do that well and I do it really well, and then we come home and we just kind of meander around our personal lives because we don't know what success looks like in home. At the office we do because they give us a raise for it. They say employee of the month. They do all sorts of things at work. But at home we don't know what success looks like. And we just kind of get lulled to sleep and we look at our phones and we sit there. And I'm in a time in my life where my son's asked me to play 21 a lot. And I've been playing a lot of 21. But I've also been blowing them off some. I'm going, what am I doing? I'm tired. We're all tired. The older you get, it's just more tired. You're just tired all the time. You're just tired. That's my life, you know? And we get rid of a bunch of guys just talking. And guess what? You're all tired. Everybody's tired. And the question is, how do we keep our wits about us with the little things? Because often we miss a lot of the little things and we go, I'll make it with some big things. And the big things are great. I hope you do the big things. I've already got a schedule on for a month from now to take my kids out on a boat. It's going to be super fun. I'm excited about it. I hope they remember it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that's one of those things I'm usually not very good at. Like, I got something on the calendar. We're going to do it. It's going to be great, kids. Let's go do it. And I did it this time. I got it 2 months ahead of time. Awesome. That doesn't make up for all the little things. And what we find is, as we look at what the people say when they like, this is what it looks like to help your kids grow up and become Christians. Here's what it looks like. We find that it isn't in the big things, but it's in the little things where we find our gains. The heat of the battle of this mission is not in the big things, but it's in the little things. It's not in the holidays, but it's in the everyday. What is it like every single day living as a family who believes in Jesus? How do we take little moments along the way to kind of remind ourselves who we are as a family and what we are for and what we're not for? One of the things that my brothers and I were talking one time, and we were talking about Dad and what it was like to have him, because you'd send you off to a party or send you off to a youth group trip or some sort of thing, and instead of saying, hey, don't do anything dumb or don't be bad, he'd always say, remember who you are. remember who you are. It's in the little things where you go, okay, I'm a Huxford. I'm a Christian. I'm a this. Eugene Peterson has a translation, a paraphrase of the Bible. I don't know what you'd call it. It's of Rome. It's called The Message. And Megan and I, our favorite translation of Romans 12, 1 and 2 comes from The Message. And it goes like this. He says, here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, eating, going to work, walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for Him. And this is a key theme in the Bible. The walking, and the getting up, and the laying down, and the waking your kids up for the day, and the laying them down to sleep, and the chaos before bedtime, and the quiet before all the kids wake up. In the moments, in the little moments, make room for God to speak to you and to speak to your kids, and take the opportunities to impress them on the hearts of our children. Kenny and Libby and I were driving around the other night, and Kenny, he goes, hey, Dad, you know that tower they built up into heaven back in the day? Well, what they didn't know was if they made it all the way up, they wouldn't be able to breathe in space. So, and I go, that's a good point, they just kind of start floating off, He's like, yeah. And Libby goes, what are you talking about? He goes, Libby, it used to be everybody spoke English like us, but then God changed all their languages, and that's why we have Spanish. I was like, man, this kid's confident. I like it. I didn't have the heart to tell them. I was like, well, they probably didn't have the English at that time, but if they knew about it, they'd probably vote for it. I mean, it's a Swiss Army knife of languages, so, it's poetic, it sounds good spoken, it's utilitarian. It's a great language, but they didn't have it, I don't think. Anyways, she hears this story, this explanation, and she goes, how do you know that? Did somebody tell you? And I go, we haven't been as good at passing down the faith to Libby like we did the older three. It's funny as the kids grow up. How the oldest is 11, and you go, man, they're all getting so big, and you forget how little the youngest really is still. We've been doing it for a decade, like we've been passing the faith on for a decade. And yet, my youngest is going, what is this story of the Tower of Babel you're talking about? Time to break out Old Faithful. Jesus Storybook Bible. Sit down, girl, we're going to read it. And the reason we always read the story Jesus Book Bible to our kids is because it has this amazing line about God's love, and it says this, that God has a never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. And you need to know He has that love for you. And that is the love, and that is the God I am hell-bent on pressing down to my kids and impressing in their hearts. And with Libby, I didn't keep my wits about me all the way. She's missing some details the other kids have gotten. Time to catch up. And this is the mission that God has for us. And dads, this is the mission that we are supposed to be leading the way on in our families and in our churches. In churches and in the homes, the health of the spiritual health of that family is deeply influenced. The spiritual health of a church is deeply influenced about the spiritual health of the men in the room and the dads. And if our church is going to grow in our worship, it's going to be led by us dads. If our family is going to be grow in worship, it's going to be led by us dads. If we're going to grow, our church is going to grow deeper in the Spirit, it's going to be led by the men in the room. I'm just going to tell you this. This is how church works. And if your family is going to grow deeper in the love and the grace of Jesus Christ, it's going to start with us. And here's what I have to say. I know we're all tired. I know it feels like we're failing. I know it feels like I'm just swinging and missing every single time. I know it feels like it's just bouncing off our kids and our wives' hearts, but it's not. Almost nothing on earth we don't have almost any evidence anywhere about anything on earth better and more solid than the evidence that tells us how valuable dads are to the life of a family and the life of the world. That when dads just start disappearing and bailing now, things start falling apart. Almost nothing is as clear as the evidence that talks about that. Is that my phone? No way. Sounds like it was on the microphone. No, it's a loud one. Okay. So hear me, please. Don't bail now. This is the heat of the battle. And God's using your life and your faith and my faith to pass the faith on to the next generation. And this world needs us. And I want you to know that we're grateful for you. Your families are grateful for you. But as the years go along, we just need to make sure we keep our wits about us. Because we're on a mission from God. And here's the deal. We're going to go into our time of communion. And here's what I want you to understand. For the times that we do fail, for the times that we do find ourselves asleep at the wheel, for the times where we've swung and missed, let's just remind ourselves what this faith is that we're passing to our kids. It's the faith of a loving Father who sent His Son out into the world to tell people like you and me, you can come back. I've paid your debts. I've covered your sins. I've reconciled you to the Father. You can come back now. And so when we do, we sit there at the end of a long night, we just kind of maybe look in the mirror a little longer than normal. We just have this laundry list of things that says, you've missed here and you failed here. And that opportunity is gone and you don't have it here anymore. And that one's out of here. And you just have this list of things where you're going, what was I thinking during those times? And the answer is, I just wasn't. I got lulled to sleep or whatever the answer was. I felt selfish. I wanted to think about myself or whatever it was. Just remember, that entire laundry list has been covered by the grace of Jesus Christ. So that when the moments come where we've knocked ourselves on the ground and we go, wow, I'm all dusty and scuffed up and everything else, guess what? We can get back up. With courage and boldness and pride in the future, we can say, God, I'm still living for you. Get me back in the battle. Because the battle fights the hardest in the everyday. And we only got a certain number of them. We only got a certain number. But the opportunity to get back in the game never stops. As you and I try to hand the faith down to our kids, let us remember what the faith is. That God is gracious to you. Father, thank you for this day.